I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the town of Saugeen Shores and extend a welcome to everyone in the chambers this evening. Our first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of your responsibility. You can do so now or when it arises on the agenda. Nothing. The next item is additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda, and we have nothing under that. The next item is delegations. So this evening we have 3 delegations, and the first is Brad Scott and Connie Barker. I think it's Connie Barker from Pumpkin Fest Committee for about 2016 Pumpkin Fest. Welcome, Brad and Connie.
Thank you, Mayor Smith, Council. Well, I'm Brad Scott. Connie Barker, my scarecrow, is walking around handing out apples to the members of Council right now. With me tonight, I have most of my committee. I have Pierre Danini. I have Kristen, Nikki, Della, Ron, Season. Who else do I have? I have Megan, I have Mandy, I have Joanne, and I have Rochelle. So we're here this evening. Pumpkin Fest is just a little less than a month away. More like 2 weeks now, October 1st and 2nd. And we're gearing up for our 30th year. It's going to be exciting. We're here tonight to thank you for your continued support and to give you an update on where we are. So tonight, we're going to thank you for allowing us the time to present our delegation and are pleased to announce some exciting new changes and activities, which Connie Barker will give you a rundown on. But before we move into that, the big change this year, as we discussed back in the spring, is our plans to move downtown. So we're going to get back to our roots. For those of you that remember, Port Elgin Pumpkin Fest started in the Coulter Parkette 30 years ago. So the plan this year is to move everything down to a 4-block radius in downtown Port Elgin. We've been notified, and thank you for the most recent changes to our parking bylaws, and we come forward tonight once again asking for permission to close portions of the 4-block radius for the weekend from Friday, September 30th at 7 p.m. to October 2nd at 5 p.m. from the east side of Goddard Street to the south side of Mill Street, the south side of Mill Street to the west side of Hilker, the west side of Hilker to the north side of Gustavus, and the north side of Gustavus to the east side of Goderich. This closure will be used for Pumpkin Fest Village, Way Off, Midway, Craft Show, Marketplace, and our OPG tent, along with other activities. Attached in your packages this evening are the 2 new maps that will include our proposed daytime and our evening closures. So in the evening on Saturday, there'll be some slight changes to our fencing just to allow for some of the businesses within that area, the Legion, Allen's Fireside, to allow their patrons to get in without having to walk around our fences. So we're going to make those changes Saturday after we close. Also, we've provided you an updated business and resident consent to those businesses and residents within that new 4-block radius that will be impacted by the closure, and they've all agreed to allow us to do this. On this 30th anniversary, we asked to bring the event back downtown. The community had many recommendations for us over the years and strongly voiced the benefits of once again hosting in the downtown core. Pumpkin Fest has years of experience of hosting a successful Way Off and will continue to utilize a variety of marketing expertise and resources to provide widespread promotion, providing excitement locally and beyond, which in turn will assist in ensuring the success of our rejuvenated event. So areas that will need your understanding and approval this evening are the permission to close the following streets for the Cinderella's Classic Antique Car Show, which is Goderich Street for 10 blocks from the south side of Market Street to the north side of Pearson, as well as the 3 blocks of Gustavus Street, County Road 17 from the west side of Goderich Street to the east side of Wellington Street, and Bricker Street from the south of Gustavus Street to north of Green Street between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Saturday, October 1st and Sunday, October 2nd. Also permission to close and use the following side streets during the same hours if needed: Elgin, Mill, Green, and Catherine Streets from the east side of Waterloo to the west side of Bricker. Permission to close the portion of the 4-block radius, which I have already mentioned. The use of 2 municipal parking lots on Bricker Street across from Tim Hortons for the Marketplace vendors. and the lot at the corner of Green and Bricker Street for the midway and displays from 7 a.m. Thursday, September 29th until 7 p.m. on Sunday, October 2nd. The use of the Plex parking lot and washroom facilities for our shuttle bus parking. The use of Green Street Public Beach for our shuttle bus parking. Waiving of all building permit fees for all necessary permits as directed by the chief building official, and the use of town equipment and required labor at no cost as per the attached list outlining the requirements. The value of this has been determined to be worth $5,000 plus, therefore crediting the town of Saugeen Shores with a gold sponsorship. We will closely work with Public Works and Community Service staff, as well as the Chief of Police, Fire, and Bylaw Enforcement to make sure we run a safe event. And now I'll hand it over to Connie.
Now, Brad's got all the tough stuff done. I get to do the fun stuff. The attractions this year will include the Little Tracks Petting Zoo, proudly presented by Boston Pizza. This attraction features up to 30 farm animals, including donkeys, goats, and chinchillas. The attraction will be located in front of our Bruce Power Growers tent. Also down in this area, we are making Aunt Mabel's straw bale maze bigger and better. Parents can sit and relax while watching their little ones make their way through the labyrinth. You can also enjoy various carving demonstrations, pumpkin, and like throughout the festival. This year we have an official pumpkin pie going to be there, and it's going to be brought to us by G.C. Houston School in Southampton, with all proceeds going to their track. Joining us once again on site and on stage will be Tim the Puppet Tamer presenting the Petit Chef. If anyone was there last year, he was a hit. Didn't matter where he went, he had an entourage of children following him. Roots in the traditions of clowning, circusry, and improvisation with puppet trainer brings a great thing to the show. In regards to our regular attractions, of course, the Bruce Power International Way Off area will be returning, and it will be in the Port Elgin Mission Church. I can't tell you how excited a lot of our volunteers from over the last 30 years, since this is our 30th anniversary, are about being inside. And no matter the difficulties our growers face year after year, there is always the anticipation and possibility of giants. Being involved with Pumpkin Fest for over 25 years, I can remember when the first rumors were of a 1,000-pound pumpkin. They're talking 2 now, guys. I'm just saying. With the move of Pumpkin Fest Village, OLG Cinderella Car Show and Car Carriage Classic Car Show will not see a large disconnect between the festival village and will allow many visitors the chance to take in all the village attractions. We still remain one of Ontario's largest 2-day outdoor car shows and within the perimeter of the show. You can also find the motorcycle show and the Corvette Corral. Bruce Telecom will be back with the Harvest Star Search Competition and Family Entertainment Center. You can also catch a ventriloquist show from the Petit Chef on both Saturday and Sunday with all the musical dance and the talent of our locals, such as Bruce Worthington, the Great Canadian Swamp Stompers. Who wrote this stuff? And the Celtic Dancers. We will have the Celtic Dancers back. The OPG Environmental Tent will once again feature Elephant Thoughts, offering experience of weightlessness with the amazing human gyroscope. And now this year will be the Zoo Guts. Doesn't that sound fun? It's an exhibit, and it has a plasma cars. Friday night is the return of the pub crawl sponsored by the Grey Bruce Airbus in Port Elgin and Southampton. Licensed establishments will offer live entertainment to help kick off Pumpkin Fest weekend, and patrons can purchase wristbands at all participating venues. Wristbands are required to ride the shuttle bus, which runs in a circular route on the continuous basis and provides safe transportation. Pumpkin crawl wristbands can also be used to enter the Pumpkin Fest Village the next day and for the weekend. We will ask all Saugeen Shores residents to help us avert traffic congestion by ensuring that their vehicles are not left overnight downtown Port Elgin or in any of the advertised parking areas, as well as the municipal lots they will be using as village attractions. An official request will be in the Shoreline Beacon, as well as an announcement of our website through our social media outlets. With all the changes and everything, we're so excited, and we invite everybody to come. We're going to have bottlenecks. We're going to have things. We have tried to foresee every conceivable problem. Guaranteed we didn't. Guaranteed we'll try to fix it. I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you all at the fest.
Thank you, Brad. And Connie, before you get away, there may be some questions or comments. I'll start over here with Councillor Mike Myatt.
Yeah, you go first. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I must admit, when I heard you're moving the event all downtown, I wondered how would you ever figure out those gates and fencing everything off in a fairly large area. And then I looked at your mapping. I see 5 entranceways, and so it's been obviously a lot of thought put into this. The other comment, I had a couple of questions too. I just wanted to congratulate the entire committee for amazing work, and for an event that generates a lot of economic spin-off for our community. And I know you have a very good partnership between the town staff and yourself, and hopefully that'll continue. No doubt it will. A couple of questions I did have. With the parking, like the businesses, downtown businesses, and the parking, you mentioned about the Legion and Allen's Fireside Grill. First question I had was, did you run into much opposition with the loss of parking for those businesses? That was the first question I had. Second question, I had a call from a resident on 623 Hilker Street, and that I understand that's where your way-off stations happen at the old Port Elgin Arena where the church is now. So that's going to be a very, very busy street, and there's 3 residents along there, and it's going to make the traffic, I would assume, very busy. That'd be where your pumpkins are coming in and out. So the call I had from that resident wondered if they should maybe move out for the weekend. As I said, probably. Are they going to have access to the driveways? There's going to be no parking signs on both sides. That's going to be a crazy street, and you have 3 residents that live in there that have some concerns. So I just wanted you to, if you could address that question for me, and then the other question was about the businesses, fairly well received, obviously, with removing parking.
I'll answer number 1. When we approached the 2 main businesses that we're talking about closing in for the weekend, not closing down, they were so quick to say yes. There wasn't even questions asked. It was just amazing. They were thrilled. They already believe in Pumpkin Fest because what it has brought to the community, and there was things that we had to work out, but the answer was yes, and it was not a problem at all.
And Councillor Myatt, thank you. We will definitely make sure that Hilker Street is posted no parking, and we won't be blocking driveways or anything like that. Most of that traffic will wind up in that parking lot behind the missionary church, so there shouldn't be too much on the street, but it will be posted no parking. Correct, yes, both sides.
Just before I move on, we do have copies of that consent form for each member of council here if they want to see it. Connie brought us a copy of what's all been signed with all the business. Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate the Pumpkin Fest committee. I know they've been working very hard at trying to revitalize the Pumpkin Fest weekend, and through their work with the chamber, I'm looking forward to another great weekend. I really like the idea of condensing it more downtown so it's not as far to walk, because to walk the blocks of looking at the cars and then to get back up to the high school, that pretty much takes the whole day. So I like your idea of condensing it, and you're going to have everybody in there for the weekend. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you. Connie missed a line in the report we got about the wristband price being $5.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I did miss that part.
That's good.
The price has been changed, and it's now $5.
And is
children under 5 are free.
And is there a place to get wristbands in advance this year?
Yes, you can get them at the chamber office. Right now, the bands are on sale. But yes, we have lowered the price, and hopefully that will make it less cumbersome for a lot of families.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Through you, will the wristbands be available at the chamber office in Southampton as well?
Yes,
Thank you.
they are.
Any further questions or comments? Well, thank you for the presentation, and we're looking forward to this new venue and all the new features, and always a grand opening. We'll be there. Thanks very much, Brad. And
Thank you. Everybody practice
Thank you.
seed spitting. Everybody get ready.
People there too, isn't there? Our next delegation is Richard Devereaux, and he's here to talk about a zoning amendment for 473 Market Street. Welcome, Richard.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the Mayor and Council for allowing me to speak. It's really a wonderful forum, a democratic forum where average citizens can voice their concerns. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunity. First, I would like to make it clear that I'm speaking on behalf of many of my neighbors who are concerned about the application regarding 473 Market Street. Attached to the deputation are 15 names, and for what it's worth, I received an additional email this morning from the residents, the owners of 462 Market, who are in support of this. Their names are Angela Vandenberg and, Tom Marler. We live in small-town Ontario, and we do so with affection. We, that is, the residents of Market Street, deliberately purchased our homes in the older section of town because of its charm, the mature trees, large lots, variety of homes, and lack of building density. We have been and continue to be committed to the neighborhood. However, in our estimation, the proposed building at 473 Market Street runs counter to the character of our neighborhood, in that it is attempting to turn one large lot into 3 narrow strips and have 3 buildings where there is now only 1. This type of density is exactly what we hope to avoid by purchasing real estate on Market Street. Never did we anticipate the possibility of 40-foot lots in the old section of town. At the September 1st meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee, it came to light via Mr. Streeter that 473 Market has the only R2 designation for several streets in all directions. It also came to light that no one really seems to know the history leading to this unique designation. Presumably, the large lot size had something to do with it, but no one knows for certain. One of the items we are asking Council to address is the appropriateness of the R2 designation moving forward. Regarding the proposed middle strip of land where the existing fourplex sits, Ms. Berry, in her committee report dated September 1st, stated that, according to the current bylaw, if the application goes forward, and I quote here, the resulting lot area is deficient by 76.8 square meters. The resulting lot frontage is deficient by 12.6 meters. And the resulting east side yard setback is deficient by 2.56 meters. Sounds like a lot of deficiencies according to the bylaw. Ms. Berry also stated that if the application is approved, then the fourplex becomes a legal conforming building as opposed to its current legal non-conforming status. We are not, that is the residents of Market Street, are not town planners and lack the knowledge and background to say what is appropriate for the zoning of the fourplex, but the town has the staff who can research and suggest the appropriate zoning. Someone mentioned at the last meeting, and that's the last meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee, that this was an opportunity for the town, and again I quote, to get it right, unquote. Regarding the proposed 40-foot severed lots, we believe it is important that Council designate each severed lot as R1 so as to prevent an R2 designation, which would allow the owner to convert the proposed single-family units to accommodate an additional basement apartment at a later date. Also, an R1 designation would be in line with all of the surrounding lots. Of grave concern, not only to the residents of Market Street, but to the community of Saugeen Shores as a whole, is the precedent set if the 40-foot severed lots are approved. Do we really want 40-foot lots to become the norm? Do we really want to encourage property owners to begin severing their lots to squeeze in an additional building? Do we really want our slice of small-town Ontario to take on more of a big city look as far as density is concerned? I find it hard to imagine that the residents of Saugeen Shores would be keen on widespread development of this kind. This, of course, leads to a broader question. What vision does Council have for the town of Port Elgin? Do we maintain the character of both the old and new neighborhoods, or do we allow haphazard development without consideration for the history and character of neighborhoods? Residents of Market Street who have been following this application regarding 473 Market have been confused and disappointed by the entire process. The original proposal was for the severance of two 40-foot lots and the building of a duplex on each lot. We examined the information we received, prepared our deputations, and attended the June 9th meeting to be informed that the owners had provided a new plan that the town had not yet had an opportunity to review. The meeting was deferred to July 7th, and at this time I have to apologize. My original deputation says June 23rd. The actual date was July 7th, pardon me. We again reviewed the information we received and prepared our deputations. The Planning Advisory Committee expressed concern about the crowded nature of placing duplexes on 40-foot lots. Before the Advisory Committee voted on the application, Ms. Berry asked for a deferral as the owners had a new plan. On August 25th, the property owner started removing healthy, mature trees from his property. Later that same day, we received notice of a community meeting regarding the property. The optics, needless to say, were terrible. The new plan proposed single-family dwellings. On August 31st, clarification was sought by email to Matt Mead, the planning technician responsible for the application, regarding whether he had any details about the proposed single-family dwelling. Specifically, whether it was a single story, a story and a half, a two-story, and if it would have a basement. The response was that the applicant was waiting on a decision from council before proceeding with any construction plans. To our surprise, at the September 1st meeting, Ms. Berry said that it would be a single-story dwelling with a basement to allow more living space in compensation for the single story. We were also informed that the owner of the property would live in one building and had a buyer for the other lot. So, we have been provided with different plans for 473 Market at every meeting. Invariably, the plans have been vague, and the drawings provided have been lacking in detail. Again, initially the plans were for two new rental duplexes. one on each of the proposed 40-foot lots. Miss Berry told us that this would be a good idea because it would create more diverse housing, and this would be a net positive for the community. Then we are told that the plans are for 2 single-unit dwellings. Clearly, this has never been about diversity of housing, but rather all about getting the lots severed, built upon, and sold. I ask you today, should the profit motive of one property owner trump the concerns and character of an entire neighborhood? Again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Devereux. Just before you go, is there any questions or clarifications? Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that we all agree that the house on the property the way it is today is a difficult situation. And I wondered, Richard, did you or any of your neighbors at any time, was any option proposed to you? Did you hear about any option that would have been something you could have agreed to? Has it always been, it doesn't matter what they do with that property, they should just leave it the way it is?
Again, the question, one more time, Neil?
My question is it the feeling of the neighborhood that you're representing that the property should remain the way it currently is, or was there ever an option that you could have agreed to?
Frankly, the neighbors never really spoke of an option that was amenable to us. So, no, we're of the opinion that that lot should remain as is. Again, in the event that this application does go through, we've had, we've made the suggestion that those severed lots become exclusively R1, and that, again, the town should decide whether or not that R2 designation for the middle strip should go forward.
Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to acknowledge Richard and the other people in the audience who have been out at every planning meeting where this application has been discussed. It's certainly been one that in your deputation you talk about how it's been a little bit confusing, and I would agree with you about that. But I did just want to acknowledge that there was very good representation on behalf of the neighborhood at each and every meeting that this application was discussed. So I thank you for coming tonight and speaking the way that you did.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Thank you, Richard.
Great.
So the next and final deputation is Mike Pirunak. I hope I pronounced that right. Yeah, that's right. I've got a pretty easy name to pronounce, so if I got it wrong, please. Thank you. Just push the button so your mic's on. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Mike Piernick, and I'm speaking on behalf of Leanne Smith of Port Elgin. Leanne could not join me tonight at the meeting because she's an older woman and she gets very worried, sick about what's going on. So I told her to stay home and I'll check in with her when I leave. She owns the property just east of the municipal building, which is located the property is located on the north side of Saugeen, or Concession 6, Lot 318. The property has been on a shared well since 1969. And this year, the property owner to the east of her property has decided not to share the well. So we then decided we need water, and we started into our avenues to get water. We started with drilling a well, and the well cost was $20,000. We drilled the well 220 feet deep, It lasted less than 24 hours and collapsed. That cost Leanne $6,000. We talked to the well drillers to relocate to another part of the property, and they said no. It could and would probably be just another waste of $6,000. So then we into our next avenues. We contacted Green Acres, the corporation of Green Acres, to see if we could tie into the water line of the trailer park, which to my understanding is their line is run off the Walmart main. It was a no. It wasn't going to happen. So then we contacted the people to the west of Lot 318, and they also had issues with water last year. They spent over $50,000 for a dug well, and they get less than 1 gallon a minute. So they said, no, it's not going to happen. I then called and had a meeting with Adam Stanley and Len Perdue, and we had a long discussion, and it was them that suggested that I should look at other avenues because the cost of a water line was going to be very high. We got a price quote, Leanne and I got a price quote from Len Perdue to run 300 meters, approximately 300 meters from the municipality building to Lot 318 was $55,000. This put Leanne almost to her knees. She didn't know what to say. We are now, after all our avenues have been covered, we are now turning back to the town to try and make that happen with a pipeline to her residence. She is on a small monthly income. Her son had suddenly passed last year about this time. She was left with the assets and no monetary. So she ended up with the house, a car, and a motorcycle. I managed to sell the car and the motorcycle to make enough funds to fund this well. We have had many interested buyers of this property, but the minute they find out there's no water, they walk away. There is no deal. And Leanne really does need to sell this home before she does lose it to back taxes, because she is struggling now. She has an apartment here in Port Elgin. She has this residence that she pays taxes, hydro bills, insurance, and she's being drained of those funds that we had. Mr. Mayor and council members, we are requesting your approval to move forward with this project. Thank you. Mike Piernick on behalf of Leanne.
Mike, thanks very much for your presentation. This is an issue I know that has been raised a number of times here, but I think we've come to a solution here. Hopefully that we can at least proceed to the next step. And I don't think there's anybody around the table that will say no to. I think our path forward would perhaps be to direct our staff to come up with a suitable plan to come back to us. And I'm not too sure exactly how long this will take. It will take some time. Obviously, it's not going to be fast enough for you, but I think we can probably ask staff to come back with a plan about how we could address this in probably the next meeting or so. Question for Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mike. I don't know how we can thank you for what you're doing to help this individual out. And it's a horrible situation when you hear of a house that had water, now they don't have water. And
Exactly.
when you tear it down and move away and just to sell the lot, I mean, or for what? If you can't get water to it. So I think the solution, good for you, and thank you for what you're doing. I did have a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Len. Len, if this came to fruition and it actually was a success after we've received your staff report and there's $55,000 contributed, et cetera, later in the game, once a resident is hooked up, because 6 concession has been a problem with more than one resident up there since I've been on council, and is there potential once that original fee is paid for other residents to tie in to water and the owners compensate some of their dollars? Is that something that has happened in the past? Can it happen? Is it practical? Can you comment on that a little bit? Like, are there any costs recoverable in the future if other houses hook up?
The only way we can make it cost recoverable is if we put in a water line of the appropriate size for the end result. That is substantially more than $55,000.
Councilor Minaj.
2 things. Mike, thank you for putting the face of reality on a problem that we should have solved a long time ago. Mr. Mayor, you know how I feel. And it's similar to Councillor Mike Myatt's feelings. I believe we not only need Len to figure out how to do this, but we need the finance department to figure out how to do this. We need to look at options on people's homes that will be standing for the next 40, 50, 60 years. And we need to reflect that in the cost of this project. And at some point in the future, then Len gets the 6th concession major lines going through. We should be able to compensate backwards, as might be suggested, and certainly I would suggest that if we're asking these people to foot a bill now, I think it's reasonable to say it should be a small amount annually, reflecting the fact that these homes will last a long time. And we could certainly figure out how to put these things on title, how to put them on the tax system. We've done it before. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Councilor Dave Mayap.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Thanks, Richard, for coming up. I'm familiar with the situation also. I know Leanne, and I knew her son as well prior to this, and I know the plight of all of the residents along that road, and it tugs at all of our heartstrings to hear these stories coming back, as the access to water should be a basic human right. It is for most people, if not all, in Canada, and we hear stories all the time on the news of communities that have water problems, and the governments of the jurisdiction step up lots of times to do this. And I agree with Councillor Minaj that it's time for this government to step up as well to supply these homes where all other options have been exhausted. And especially with this home here, because literally it's a short stone's throw from piped water. And whether pressure needs to be put on the neighbors to allow us to connect into their mains, or do a horizontal bore over to Walmart, or there is a technical solution here that doesn't involve digging up concession 6. I'm sure there is. If you just to get the right people with the right mindsets in the room, I just can't be convinced that there isn't an easier and more efficient way of doing this, and convincing the neighbors. I don't mean the neighbors to the right and left, I mean the neighbors behind, that if they're sitting on 60 PSI of town water, they need to get in the mindset of sharing that with their neighbors. Nobody owns water. Water is a resource that should be made available to everybody in the town, if not everybody in the world. Thanks a lot for coming, Richard.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mike. I just wanted to follow up on what Councillor Mayette was just saying, and this, we have polled the residents up and down concession 6 for the $18,000 hookup in the past, and we've got turned down by everybody but one. for that to proceed with that project, and now we see this $55,000 for a 300-meter pipeline, which is a lot of money to run water, and a lot of money, obviously more money than Mrs. Smith can bear. I just and Councillor Mayette has now raised twice this concept of talking to the neighbors about a way to work with them to connect Mrs. Smith to water. And I wonder, Mr. Mayor, if this is an opportunity. I know that our staff has been working that channel a bit, trying to find a way to work with the neighbors to bring water across. I know obviously you've reached out privately. I wonder if that's an opportunity more directly, Mr. Mayor, for council to reach out. I think that the municipality is in a unique opportunity to perhaps grease the wheels on making that arrangement work in a way that maybe not possible to deal privately. And I wonder if council can find a way to lend its support to public works staff to see if we can make an arrangement on that basis with neighboring property owners to provide that assistance. And see if we can find a way to make this happen in relatively short order with the support of the municipal government. I would suggest that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I think, did you want to comment on what's been said here, Nolan?
I have approached the owners of Green Acres, and they want absolutely no part hooking in with any other property.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think the CAO wants to make a comment, and then I'll finish.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And taking council's informal direction, we will report back at our next council meeting with some solutions. It's my understanding that the $55,000 is for a water supply line that's suitable for one resident and not multiple residents. Mr. Perdue can comment on that. So the costs of running a municipal service that could be tapped off for all residents along the street may be significantly more, but I just wanted to get some clarity from Mr. Perdue.
Yes, that $55,000 would only service one property, and when anyone else wanted to hook on, that $55,000 would be thrown away. There's no room for anybody else to connect on. We want to upgrade the line so it services everybody in the future. You're looking at over $360,000 extra.
Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a follow-up clarifying question from Len then. And when you said the $55,000 would be thrown away, does that mean then that Ms. Smith or the occupant of that house would then have to start all over and pay another fee to be connected to the larger infrastructure?
The property owner paid the $55,000 now, and then let's say 5 years from now we do the ultimate upgrade. Every resident would have to pay an additional $18,000, including Ms. Smith.
Okay, I think you're speculating there because I think I don't want to say you're wrong there, Len. Council could do something. I appreciate what you're trying to get at because it would basically means you would be ripping up the 2-inch line and putting up probably a 4 or 6-inch line. That's what we're trying to say. And so I think we're speculating about what's going to happen here. I think the issue is here about whether we want to try and move forward with this particular project. And I think I heard well from council. We'll bring this back to the next meeting and work to find a solution for you, Mr. Puniak. Okay. Vice Deputy Mayor Hubert.
I just wanted to echo what Councillor Minaj had said and hope that when you come back that we see some opportunities for different ways of the property owner making the payments over a period of time to cover this, how that would be possible through our finance department. Thank you.
I think we can look at that at any time. Okay. I think we've had a good discussion. Thank you very much for coming. And we really have some great sympathy for the situation you're in, and hopefully we can make this work for you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the time you've taken.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is an Environmental Services and Transportation Staff Report, and it has to do with the Godrich Street Lighting Conduit Capital Project, and our Acting Director of Public Works, Len Perdue, will present.
As part of the 2016 capital project, we're looking at extending the new decorative street lights further to the south from the downtown core on Green Street down to Police Parkette. In addition to the required wiring conduit, staff would put in a second conduit for the future irrigation lines, similar to what we did in the last 2 blocks. This additional line will be empty until the irrigation is installed. The installation of the second conduit at this time is required, as it would be difficult in the future to add it due to the amount of space in the street. The cost associated with the additional irrigation conduit is included in the contract price contained in this recommendation. To avoid disruption to the downtown businesses and plan special events in the vicinity, the project documents stipulate that the conduit installation has to be completed in October. This requirement will allow sufficient time for town staff to install the street lights once completed and then have them operational prior to the winter season, as long as winter holds off like it normally does. The installation of the conduits in the downtown core will disrupt pedestrian traffic and occupy adjacent parking spaces while the work is being completed. Staff will notify the BIA and area businesses of the project prior to the commencement. We only had one bidder on the project, as you'll see. It was Clearwater, which is a local firm. Financial impact, the capital budget allocation of $102,000 is funded partly by capital and partly by the BIA, 60-40. And as you can see, there is sufficient funds in the budget to complete the street lighting installation.
Thanks, Len. The recommendation is that Clearwater Directional Drilling be awarded the contract for Goddard Street Lighting Conduit Installation Project, quotation number 2016-6320-5660 in the amount of $42,084, plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary contract documents. Comments? Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's great to see this project going forward, and I'm glad to see it. My one question, it's a simple question, Len, is the removal of the existing Cobra lights included in this amount of money, or is that an additional cost?
Removal of the existing light fixtures is covered under the miscellaneous line item here.
Okay, thank you.
So it's not part of the Clearwater contract.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Respectfully, Len, I should have called you earlier. I saw the drawing now, and of course this project is a fantastic project. As members of council know, I walk the main street pretty much every other night, if not every night, and walking dogs and whatever else I need to do. And I notice the dark spots and the bright spots. And clearly for me, I need the follow-up report that says that the location of the new lights in close proximity to the stop lights at the Green Street and Gustavus Street is a good idea. In only because there is so much light coming from those intersections from the stoplights. I wonder if they would be better served if we moved, not a lot, but if we could move the new decorative lights slightly to avoid being washed out by the stoplights, and if a follow-up study could be done to at least see if what I'm saying is valid. Thank you.
Do you want to speak to it? I think you have a different drawing here, a different layout, but was left on the desk. So I think that's an issue that'll be. I mean, I think you can address that at the next stage on this. This what we're talking about tonight is just doing a directional bore under Goddard Street.
Correct. The bore will be going from light to light.
Okay.
The lights will be installed later on this year.
Okay.
The attached plan was incorrect. I'm sorry for my late getting it done, but it's part of your package that you found on your desk.
So I guess the question then is, for you, Neil, is which one of these do you think should be moved? Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recommend that we take Councillor Menage's comments under advisement. We'll work with the contractor, and if we can we'll identify whether there are quantifiable darkness spots that we can address, and if we can work with the contractor to slightly adjust some of the locations within the budget, then we will proceed.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Len. Len, just in terms of the costing, there was $102,000 budget for the project, and I see where it's coming in at 101,824, which is wonderful. And I think it's great planning on your part, and I want to commend you for this. Because any time we're excavating or boring, we have a second conduit at the same time we're doing a project for future, conduit for lighting, whatever it is. I think that's very smart, and it's good planning on your part. That extra cost for the second line, Len, looks like $42,084. So without that, I see that the project maybe was underspent by that amount, perhaps, because we're adding a second line. Are we reducing the amount of lighting to get to that $40,000 under budget to allow for the second line to be put in? Are we reducing anything, or was it just competitive pricing? It's a good climate out there right now to get good pricing for this type of work, Len.
Several things. First of all, the extra conduit has a cost of approximately $7,000. That is part of the $42,000 tender. Okay, so if we removed it, we're not going to save a whole lot anyways. So no, we didn't alter things to make that work. The one thing we did add, though, is when we had a feeling, because one of the local contractors, as you can see, we thought would be more aggressive, we added the extra street light at Police Parkette to go a little further down the street. And as you can see, that's why everything's so much tighter now.
Okay. If there's no further comments, then all in favor of the recommendation. Opposed, if any, that's carried. The next item on the agenda is a Planning and Development Staff Report. It has to do with the site plan agreement with Barry's Construction and Insulation and the Arlington Street townhouses. And our Manager of Development Services, Bart Toby, will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff has heard Council requests for easier to read and better drawings. Staff believes these drawings provided tonight are better than the diagrams recently submitted. However, staff also believes that this is a starting point, and with feedback from you, Council, in the future will continue to make changes required to provide better and clearer drawings in the future. Barry's Construction and Installation owns lands on the west side of Arlington Street, as shown on the attached key map known as 800 Arlington Street. The land is currently occupied by vacant structure. The owner is proposing to construct a 6-unit townhouse development compatible with the neighbors. The owner is posting securities to ensure completion of all site improvements. The developer is removing trees at the front of the property despite the best efforts to relocate them. However, the 2 rows of trees located at the rear of the property remain and provide a screen between the trail and the development. Once the owner has executed his part of the site plan agreement, paid in capital contributions and deposits as necessary securities, the bylaw authorizing and entering into the site plan agreement will be brought forward to Council. The site plan, through site plan, the owners will contribute $20,000 for future Arlington Street upgrades, as well as $5,000 contribution for stormwater along Arlington Street. 5% in lieu of parkland dedication will be collected at the next step, which is at the severance.
Thank you, Bart. The recommendation is that Council considers a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with Barry's Construction and Insulation Limited to authorize the construction of a 6-unit townhouse development. Questions or comments? Councillor Menage.
My comment is thank you for noting it, Bart, that Stuart and I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to find somebody who could remove 3 of the most beautiful trees that are in the community, and there's just nobody that wants to tackle the issue. So if you hear that 3 of the most beautiful trees in the community are being taken down, you'll know that we tried, and I appreciate the effort.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mike Myatt.
Picking up on what Councilman Oz said, I did want to say, in congratulating the developers as well, that there are on the other side of it, there are 2 rows of trees behind the property in the report that are being salvaged, maintained. So I think that's a very positive thing. So yes, those 3 trees, that's going to hurt, but there are 2 nice rows of trees at the back being salvaged. So I commend the developer for that.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Toby, what's the zoning for this particular development?
I'll let Mr. Pasner speak.
Jade, if you just come up to the mic, will you please? Thanks.
Yes. R3. All right, and I see these lots are 7.1, 7.2 meters wide. 21-foot lots? Roughly?
Yes.
25-foot lots?
Yes.
All right. Just trying to get my head around that as compared to the discussion we had earlier about the Market Street. Down the street, essentially, isn't it? Okay, thank you. That's what I had to...
Any further questions? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That's carried. We have, there's a number of items there. There's 6 or 7 items for committee of the whole information for. If anybody has any questions, we can try and answer them. If not, we will move on to the number 7, to the report of the department head, and there's an information report on the update of the splash pad. And I think maybe it's there, but maybe you want to speak to it, Jane.
Yeah, we're not really looking for anything tonight. It's really an update for council, more of an information report. Hopefully we've included all the details to date that we're aware of, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillor Mike Myatt.
I just really wanted to comment on complimenting the Director of Community Service for an excellent report. I think it's been a really good update, and it certainly helped with my line of thinking. And I just wanted to thank Jane for a very good report. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would say I appreciate staff's effort in putting this together now and giving us a sense of what the decision-making process is going to look like for council going forward on this issue. I really wanted to highlight one item in the report, and I read it and now I don't see it, so I won't be able to read it, but this, with regard to the deed of land, and I think it's really important that we just say it out loud in this situation that that what has been reported, there was just an article in the Shoreline Beacon this week which was reporting information which was factually incorrect with regard to the deed of land. And perhaps could you just make a comment, Jane, on that subject so that we have, because there's a lot of information on these issues sort of swirling around out there, and I think it's real important that we get the information out there that's factually correct. So could you just make a comment on that for us, Jane?
Yes.
Sorry, I was just going to tell you it's in the bottom last paragraph there on the first page.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Certainly, the recent title search undertaken by the municipal solicitor certainly identified that it is a registered owner of the property is the corporation of the village of Port Elgin, which is the town of Saugeen Shores. So it is.
But it's also clear that there are no covenants on that deed restricting use in any way, as has been reported widely in the press and also has been repeated often in social media circles.
Yeah, certainly you are correct, and it's unfortunate that it was in the press, and we've had some great, valuable conversations with some of the participants who are opposed to the location and on-site meetings with them, so had some great progressive conversations with them regarding that.
Just one more comment that I've had the opportunity with staff, and I appreciate staff's efforts to meet with the group of petitioners on the North Shore Park subject, and also met with the fundraising committee just earlier today, and we've had some really productive and positive meetings with those groups. And I think, as I've said to lots of people out there recently, I think we're just really lucky, so lucky to have these groups who've come to us without us soliciting them to offer to fundraise 80% of the money to build these splash pads in both Southampton and in Port Elgin. And I think I think we can have some positive discussions, continue to have positive discussions, and move things forward in a way to honor that work that those groups are doing. And I think we just rely so much on groups like that in this community to build great things in this community, and we're going to keep relying on them more and more. So we need to, it's important to discuss the issues and get the issues cleared up with these things and try to move forward in the right way. But we really have to, and I would say to every member of the community, because I read a lot of things being said out there about these projects, that we can have issues with projects and we can talk about them, but let's remember these groups are volunteers, are people who care about the community, are offering things to the community, and let's try to honor that at the same time as we deal with the real issues and try to get these things sorted out. I know you guys have a great plan for sorting those things out and working us through to a point where we can make a decision. So I appreciate that and look forward to the report in October. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question and then a couple of comments. I wanted to ask through you to the Director of Community Services. The drawing that's included in the report that shows Jubilee Park, there's a rather large rectangle there that appears to be marked as a shed. I believe that that's the potential location out in the future for some sort of asphalt playing surface. Is that more accurate than a shed?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't going to comment, but I really feel that it's necessary for me to say something. I did vote against the in principle location with North Shore Park, and I still feel that way. Anyway, I believe in the value of splash pads, so I think that there's a place for them in the community. And reading the letters and reading the report, and even what the Deputy Mayor just said about specifically about information about the deed. The comments in the staff report and further comments about misinformation and things being reported, I think that there's responsibility for that misinformation from all of the parties involved. And it just seems to me like the way that it's being presented, it's suggesting that a group of people who feel strongly about North Shore Park, who I believe approached the town to get information initially about the deeds and the land and all that kind of stuff, and went forward with finding out information. And in fact, when they realized that, wait a second, maybe this isn't right, they also went and did a little more digging later on too. But I think misinformation is applicable to everybody. For example, in the staff report we've got tonight, it's the Port Elgin Splash Pad Committee has directed by the Port Elgin Lions. The Port Elgin Lions generally haven't shown up beyond as a donor in anything. So now there seems to be a different way of representing the group. So I feel strongly that, the misinformation that's out there is applicable to all of the parties involved. And I do particularly want to reference that I agree with a lot of the things that were mentioned in the letter from the Splash Pad, Port Elgin Splash Pad Committee about the value of things. So they were saying that they appreciate that our decision to support in principle the Splash Pad in North Shore Park represented that we were giving value to youth in the community and investing in youth. I agree with that. We were giving value to volunteers. I agree with that. We were giving value to the idea that free recreational opportunities in this community are a good thing. I agree with that too. We were giving value to the fundraising and other expertise that had been given both by people from the community and staff members toward the project. I agree with that too. They also said that our decision was giving value to creating community gathering places, and I agree with that too. However, the part that's missing from there is, when are we going to put a value on nature, on green space, on trees, and on the services that nature provides to the community? That park is the only park that is like that in Saugeen Shores. And so, going forward, I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, but the value question, I don't disagree with any of the values that are being thrown around there, but there's a silent person in all of this. It's the park itself, and it's nature. And we don't get a second chance to do nature. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so I just feel that needed to be said. And I do want to make sure that, the people who are out there asking people to stand up for North Shore Park, that, they've admitted that they were wrong with the deed information. The town spent some time. They had to do a little bit of digging to find it out too. But in the beginning, that group, I believe, approached the town and received information that then they acted upon. Later, it was found out that that information was inaccurate. So I just don't think it's fair to sort of imply that misinformation is just coming from one direction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think that's the state of the social media world we are in now, that misinformation is spread so quickly and misinterpreted. And I think we all need to be careful about how we communicate electronically and all over, because it is so easy to misinterpret someone. That's why many of you will know that I hardly ever respond to any of your emails, and that's one of the reasons. Anyway, I think we've had a lot of discussion on this. There's a report here, and I think we'll leave it at that. We'll get the chance to discuss it again when we come back for a decision in October. So, do you want to comment, Mike? I think it would be appropriate. I think it would be appropriate, Mike. So that's the end of our agenda, and we'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Madison and Deputy Mayor, we're adjourned for 10 minutes.